about our inaugural Public Arts Commission meeting. And we want to thank you again for participating. We'll begin today's meeting with a roll call by Ms. Lakita Ford.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lakita Ford. I'm the program manager for City of South Fulton Department of Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Affairs. I will start for roll call for today's Public Arts Commission meeting, Thursday, August 6th. When you hear your name, please feel free to unmute yourself and respond as present. Representing District 1, Ms. Ty Mays Kelty.
Present.
Representing District 2, Mr. Warren Spirling. Representing District 3, Ms. Traci Harden. Representing District 4, Ms. Tisha Smith.
It's Tisha and I'm present.
Tisha, my apologies. Thank you for correcting that.
Mm-hmm.
Representing District 6, Ms. Myrna Fuller. Also present, we have our director, Mr. Tony Phillips, our deputy director, Ms. Chapin Payne, deputy city clerk, Mr. Corey Adams, our master plan consultant, Mr. Carlos Perez. However, Mr. Phillips, unfortunately, we do not have a quorum for today.
Thank you. Members of the Public Arts Commission, as some of you may be aware from either observing city council meetings, for public meetings for this commission and for most boards and commissions hosted by the city, there is a public meeting requirement, and it also has as a stipulation that you have a quorum or at least a majority of the members present in order to move forward with a meeting where any decisions will be made. For this particular commission, there are 8 appointed members. Currently, there are 5 of those appointments that have been made. But as of today's roll call, we only have 2 of our commission meetings present. Ms. Kelty and Ms. Smith, I believe, are with us. And so we currently lack for a quorum. In that instance, what we intend to do for the next few minutes, because we cannot take any official action of the commission, things like approving an agenda or voting on items to move forward, things like a chair, co-chair, things of that nature. We'll have to table those voting items for the next meeting when we do have a quorum. If we have some additional members to join before we complete our meeting today, then we can certainly revisit that. But at this point, we do not have a quorum of our 5 members present. And I believe, Mr. Adams, I'll defer to you, but I believe with the 5 appointments, how many would we need to establish a quorum?
Normally it's a plurality. So if it's 5 members, then you need to have at least 3.
That's what I thought. So we will monitor to see if we have a 3rd member to connect to today's meeting. We may have someone that's running a few moments behind. And if that's the case and we do establish a quorum, then we can move forward with any action items that require a vote of the commission. But as of right now, I believe we have not yet achieved a quorum for today's meeting. Some of the things that we wanted to cover today, and one of the things that's really key for commissions of this nature, and this is our inaugural meeting, is to kind of put some organizational framework to how the commission will work. And part of that is Robert's Rules of Order. I'm not sure how many of you may be familiar with Robert's Rules of Orders, but it is the process or the set of guidelines that we use that governs how we go about conducting these meetings. It's the same set of rules that are used for city council meetings. Most legislative bodies go by Robert's Rules of Order in order to kind of establish a orderly process for the meetings. And so I wanted to take just a few brief moments to maybe cover some basics on Robert's Rules of Orders. This is a learning process for all of us. And that's okay. We'll continue to kind of reiterate this as the commission meets over the coming weeks and months to make sure that all of us are familiar with Robert's Rules of Orders. You'll get some additional information via email in reference to that as well. But I wanted to take just a few moments again to kind of go over the basics of Robert's Rules of Order, just so we would all have an idea of what our process will be going forward. Ms. Ford, are you able to share that information?
Yes, Mr. Phillips, I have dropped that into the chat. So if you have a device that you can open that, feel free. In this meantime, I'm going to try to share my screen so I can have it visible for anyone who does not have access.
Mr. Adams, is the share screen option currently available?
Yes, it should be available. If not, I can share it as well.
Yes, Mr. Adams, it's not allowing me to share. If you could pull that link from the chat up and then please share your screen.
Okay, thank you very much. So very briefly, this is just a kind of brief recap of Robert's Rules of Order that gives us the basics. Again, we'll kind of go through more of this information over the next several meetings as all of us kind of learn better how to guide our meetings by Robert's Rules of Orders. When we finally establish a quorum for this or future meetings, a couple of things that we will do is allow the commission to nominate a co-chair. The chair of the Public Arts Commission by ordinance is the mayor's appointee. That slot is currently vacant. We're working with the mayor's staff to address that as we speak. But the board, the commission will have the opportunity to vote on a co-chair. And moving forward, once those two positions are filled by vote and by ordinance, then the chair and the co-chair would manage the meetings going forward. So let's talk about a few of the basics on Robert's Rules of Orders. The way an item is introduced in our meetings by Robert's Rules of Order are by various motions. And so this has a brief recap of the type of motions that are used in our meetings. The primary one that will likely be used most often in our meeting is a main motion. It's used to introduce a new item. And that's the one that is most frequently used, although there could be some of these others as well. A subsidiary motion changes or affects how we handle a main motion. A privileged motion is an urgent or important matter unrelated to the current pending business. Then there's incidental motions, which is a question, procedure, or other motions. A motion to table, which basically means to set something aside, and a motion to postpone, which delays a vote. So there are various types of motions. The one most frequently used is the main motion. The next section says that every motion has several steps, 6 steps, in fact. A member has to be recognized, and then a member rises or raises his hand to signal the chairperson to make a motion. Once a motion is made, another member must second that motion in order for it to move forward. The motion is then restated, and then there's an opportunity for debate. And this is where various members of the commission, if a debate is necessary or desired, would have the opportunity to speak to that motion in whatever way they chose, in favor or against, or add additional information. Once the debate ends on that motion, then there is a vote. The chairperson again restates the motion and then takes a vote of all current members, followed by an announcement of the vote, whether the motion passed or failed. Not every motion requires debate. There's some motions that can move forward without debate, and that is up to the members to decide whether or not they'd like to debate an issue and move forward to a vote subsequent to that. There are a couple of other interesting points, requesting points of something. A point of order, it draws attention to a breach of the rules or an improper procedure or breach of established practice. Any member can make a point of order. A point of information, a member may need to bring up an additional point or additional information so that other members can take fully informed votes. A point of inquiry is when a member may use that for clarification in a report or to make, in order to help the commission make better voting decisions. And the last one is a point of personal privilege. A member may use point of personal privilege to address the physical comfort or the settings, such as temperature or noise, things of that nature. Members may also use a point of privilege to address the accuracy of published reports, and so on. The second page, which you can have an opportunity to kind of read through at your convenience, again, that link is in the chat box, kind of tells you how to go about making motions. It actually tells you what to say when you'd like to make a motion. When you're introducing a main motion, you would simply say, I move to, and you can kind of follow this chart as you have an opportunity to flow through it. That will help. You can use as a guide when we're going through our meetings to determine if you'd like to make a motion, how would you go about this? This sheet kind of is a handy guide for you to be able to familiarize yourself with that until we all become a little bit more versed in the regular process of Robert's Rules of Order. So I know that was a very quick overview and didn't contain all the details. Again, it's a learning process on Robert's Rules of Order, and we'll continue to send you information on that via email as we prepare for our next meeting. And just to remind everyone of the rules that guide or govern how we meet as a commission. Does anyone have any questions specific to that?
No.
Okay. So the next item that we would have engaged would have been the vote on our co-chair. Again, as I mentioned earlier, we'll have to table that for the next meeting when we do have a quorum. The other discussion that we'll have in our next meeting is a discussion of our meeting logistics. Part of our organizing of the commission is for the commission to kind of decide how frequently we're going to meet. Part of the ordinance, the Public Arts Commission meets quarterly, is how that is memorialized in the ordinance. Tentatively right now, we have dates of October 8th, January 7th, April 8th, and July 8th for those quarterly meetings. We can't vote on that today with the lack of a quorum, but we'll share that information with you at the next meeting, which we will reschedule fairly shortly. We'll need to vote on the dates for the upcoming Public Arts Commission meetings, as well as the meeting time. So we started with a starting point of 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. That is subject to the will of the commission. We had a Parks Advisory Board meeting earlier this week, and they decided to move their meetings to an a late afternoon meeting. And this commission would have the opportunity to kind of set a meeting time that works for the majority of the members. And so that will come forward. The meeting locations will typically be at the Southwest Arts Center when public health conditions allow us to meet in person. Currently, as you know, most of meetings are being done via Zoom to ensure health and safety. However, when we do decide to be able to meet in person, the Southwest Arts Center is typically going to be the meeting location, unless the commission chooses otherwise. And so again, we'll have to vote on that at our next meeting when we have an opportunity to have a quorum. Ms. Ford, if you could take a moment to kind of talk about the advisory board role and responsibilities.
Absolutely. So as Mr. Phillips outlined, the Public Arts Commission was mandated by our elected officials, our mayor, city council, and a part of our parks ordinance. It's pretty specific as to the roles and the responsibilities of the board. So as written, the Public Arts Commission serves in an advisory capacity for promoting, encouraging, and increasing support for the arts in the city of South Fulton. The commission shall consist of 8 members who represent the following areas: individual artists, art organizations, art patrons, educators, the community, and the public. The mayor's appointee shall serve as chair, and each city council member shall have 1 appointee. The chair shall vote in the cases of a tie. The members' terms will serve congruently with their appointed city council members' term office. Commission members cannot serve more than 2 full terms or a total of 8 years.
So that gives you the description of the Arts Commission and how its roles and responsibilities is captured in our ordinance. And that will, again, be the framework under which this commission will operate. Next on our agenda, we wanted to talk a little bit about the City of South Fulton Department of Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Affairs. And so I wanted to take a moment just to kind of give you a brief overview. We will, of course, delve into more details as we move forward. But the Department of Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Affairs currently exists of 17 parks and 12 facilities that the department currently manages. Among those 17 parks, we have 692 acres of park space, about half of which is currently developed. Included in those 12 facilities are 2 that are specifically dedicated to the arts. The first is the Southwest Art Center on New Hope Road. Many of you may be familiar with that facility that has both an education building and the Southwest Art Center Theater. Also includes an art gallery. We also have the South Fulton Art Center, which is on Butner Road, you may also be familiar with. That includes a theater as well. In addition to the facilities, the parks, the green space we manage, one of our primary responsibilities is managing all of the programming, events, and other related activities that go along with the department, specifically for the Public Arts Commission as it relates to the cultural affairs and artistic programming in our city. They primarily take place at the Southwest and South Fulton Art Centers. We talked briefly about the theater. As you may be aware, both theaters host productions. We have had a longstanding partnership with True Colors Theater Company, here founded by Kenny Leon here in the city of Atlanta at the Southwest Art Center. We have a number of other production companies that we've worked with both at South Fulton and Southwest. And so those efforts continue and are ongoing. We also host a full roster of arts classes that are available to the public across various disciplines in the arts, everything from visual art to performance art. There are a number of classes that are offered for all age levels and all beginning, intermediate, and advanced levels in several of those disciplines. Things like ballet, guitar, piano, just to name a few, are some of the classes that we've done. We've done pottery. There's a whole roster of classes that are a part of our cultural affairs activities. On the horizon also, and again, this is a big part of what we will discuss frequently in our Public Arts Commission, the city is positioned to acquire the Wolf Creek Amphitheater in December of this year. That will be another huge addition to our cultural affairs and arts programming. Some of you may be familiar with the venue that's been in South Fulton for quite some time. And we are currently in the process of planning operational and personnel budgets and things of that nature for that acquisition. And so we'll talk more in the future going forward. And so there's plenty of opportunities for the Arts Commission to engage all of that's going on in our cultural affairs efforts, programming, facilities, and events. And we're looking forward to having that dialogue as we move forward. Does anyone have any questions about the department overview?
No.
Okay.
No,
So,
I don't.
Thank
So
you.
Mr. Phillips, thank you for sharing that overview. And to the 2 present committee members, now that you have a brief understanding of our structure as far as Robert's Rules of Order, a little background and history of your roles and responsibility as mandated through our Parks Ordinance, as well as a little bit of a history of the department, I think now is an appropriate time to formally go through the swearing in process. And that will take place from our Deputy Clerk, Mr. Corey Adams.
Thank you, Ms. Ford. And welcome to Ms. Kelty and Ms. Smith to the as your appointment to the Public Arts Commission. Typically, we would conduct this administering of the oath of office in person, where you would raise your right hand, and upon completion of the recitation of the oath, you would sign your name on the oath of office. In this virtual environment, what I will do, I will read the oath and I will ask that you repeat after me. And upon the completion, we will send you the oath via email, and we ask that you sign it and either email it or mail it back to the city clerk's office. So with that, if there's no questions, I will begin the recitation of the oath of office. Ms. Kelty and Ms. Smith, are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, please repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Tisha Smith,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will truly discharge
that I will truly discharge
the duties as a member of the Public Arts Commission
the duties as a member of the Public Arts Commission.
And I'm sorry, Mr. Director Phillips, I'm gonna pause because I see another one of your members coming into the meeting right now. And so Ms. Kelty and Ms. Smith, please forgive me if we can let him get in here and I can start over, please.
Okay. Problem.
I think Mr. Warren Sperling is in the meeting now.
Welcome, Mr. Spirling.
I see him, but I don't know if he is able to hear us.
Yeah, I can't tell if he's able to.
Guess we'll give him 2 seconds and then we'll continue.
Okay.
Mr. Spurling? Well, I guess we'll proceed in the interest of time, because it doesn't look like he's connected audibly yet.
Okay.
Okay, I believe we will just start over just for the record. Okay, I state your name.
I, Tisha Smith,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will truly discharge
that I will truly discharge
the duties as a member of the Public Arts Commission
the duties as a member of the Public Arts Commission
in all matters which require
in all matters which require
my official action,
my official action
to the best of my knowledge and skill,
to the best of my knowledge and skill,
and I will so act.
and I will so act.
As in my judgment,
As in my judgment,
will be most conducive
will be most conducive
to the welfare and best interests
to the welfare and best interests
of the entire city.
of the entire city.
I do further solemnly swear
I do further solemnly swear
that I am not the holder
that I am not the holder
of any unaccounted for public money
of any unaccounted for public money
due this state,
due this state,
and that I am otherwise qualified
and that I am otherwise qualified
to hold said office
to hold said office
according to the Constitution of the United States of America.
according to the Constitution of the United States of America.
Congratulations, you have officially been authorized as a member of the Public Arts Commission. As I stated previously, we will send this oath of office to you. And if you would just sign that and promptly return that to us at your earliest convenience. Director Phillips, I will turn the meeting back over to you and Mrs. Ford. I still don't know if Mr. Sperling is able to audibly speak yet.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Adams. Congratulations to our two members that just were sworn in with your oath. And thank you again for your willingness to serve our community and our efforts in the arts. Your voices are going to be really key in helping us to get to the place all of us are hoping that we can get to as it relates to cultural affairs and arts in our community. Next in this process is a presentation that is really key. The Department of Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Affairs is currently engaged in developing a master plan. And for those of you who may not be familiar, for agencies like ours, one of the kind of fundamental building blocks of a Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Affairs agency or department is to develop a master plan. It's a long-range roadmap of where we would like to go over the next 5 to 10 years across literally every aspect of our department. Everything from facilities to programming to all the various things that this department connects to. It is one of those very kind of vital pieces to help us as a community define what our vision is, what our aspirations is for where we'd like to go in this department and specifically in cultural affairs. The way agencies go about developing a master plan is you typically, and what we did was put out a solicitation to find a consultant that specializes in this area to help us develop a parks master plan for the city of South Fulton. We started that process some time ago. We put out a solicitation. We had bids from literally all over the country. I think we ended up with over 20 separate bid submissions. And after going through a very deliberate process and making sure that we selected the cream of the crop, I am very proud to say that we ended up choosing to partner with Perez Consulting and Mr. Carlos Perez. We have been underway with this Parks Master Plan process for several months now. It is highly connected to community engagement, and he'll speak about that in just a moment. It also will connect to this commission and kind of informing you about where that process is going. But we're fortunate that Mr. Perez is with us today. And so what I'm going to do at this point is turn this over to him and allow him to kind of talk about the master plan process and all that Perez Consulting and their partners have done to help us get to where we are today.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Phillips. Good afternoon. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great.
Yes.
Well, good afternoon and congratulations on having your first meeting and being officially appointed as part of the commission. We're excited to be here to share a little bit about the Parks Master Plan. So what I'd like to do now, if it's okay, I'm going to share my screen. Ms. Lakita or Mr. Phillips, might you be able to share the rights so I can share the screen?
Mr. Adams, I think you're listed as the host. Can you grant Mr. Perez co-hosting privileges?
Or share screen is fine, either one.
Oh, share.
Yeah, share screen. Be great. And what we'd like to do is share a brief presentation with you that covers key points of the plan. As Mr. Phillips mentioned, talks a little bit about the goals and the process that we went through. We just are currently wrapping up 2 major phases of the plan. So we'd like to share with you the key findings from that, and then next steps for this process, part of which will be looking at how to enhance the integration of arts and culture into the system that's the City of South Fulton has. We have very unique elements in the system with the art centers and now with the amphitheater that'll be part of the system come December. So those are 2 important opportunities to integrate and further enhance as we move forward. So let's see. Let me share my screen. So a little bit about the process in 2019, where last year when this council and mayor decided to complete this plan, these were the goals that were established for it. What the idea was to develop a parks master plan, essentially a blueprint to provide the department with a trajectory to accomplish over the next 5 to 10 years. And looking at ways to enhance and diversify recreation programs and add more where needed and necessary. Looking at maintaining and upgrading facilities and infrastructure. And then looking at ways and opportunities to enhance STEM-based educational programming across the system. So we're part of a team that's doing this with the city in collaboration with Mr. Phillips, Ms. Lakita, Ms. Payne, and the rest of the staff. As well as the public. We've gone out to the public in quite a big way, and you'll see that here in a second. But we're fortunate to be leading this plan, and we're really excited to do so. We're also teaming with Post Consulting, who specializes in operations, programming, and management of parks and recreation systems. The collaborative firm has been helping us with public engagement and other facets of the plan. And then lastly, we also used a company called ETC Institute that are national experts in statistically valid surveys. So collectively, this team has completed over 400 parks master plans across the country. So it's something that we have a lot of experience in and we enjoy doing, and are excited to be working with the city of South Fulton on this plan. This is our typical process. It's a typical or similar to a typical strategic planning process where each phase builds on the findings from the previous. So for example, we started with context analysis, understanding the existing conditions of the city, previously completed plans and how they might relate to the park, this plan. We also completed then a needs and priorities assessment, which I'll talk about more in a second, but that's where we went out to the community to identify the needs and priorities. And that's the phase that we just wrapped up now, or we're in the process rather of wrapping up. And then the findings from those two then lead to the long range vision. So establishing a vision moving forward for the department. Then that leads to implementation plan. What we'll do then is once we have this long range vision, we'll actually go back to the needs and priorities assessment to see what the priorities were from the community. And then that helps us to develop a phased implementation strategy. So elements that were identified as priorities were things that we would look to suggest to implement first, and then so on. And then lastly, the final plan and adoption, which is we would create a final report and then share it with the council and mayor, and then look for adoption. As I mentioned, the needs and priorities assessment is a phase that we're currently wrapping up. And this is a really important phase of the project because it's where we go out to the community to see what the needs and priorities are for parks, recreation, cultural services, etc. And so what we do is we use 3 different techniques to identify the needs and priorities because there's no one technique that allows us to identify those. So we use qualitative, observational, and quantitative. And where the findings of those overlap, that starts suggesting the citywide needs and priorities. So for example, from a qualitative perspective, on the left-hand side, you can see all the different ways that we've collected input. We have a project steering committee. We've met with all your elected officials. We had staff interviews. We had focus group interviews, special events prior to COVID. We had an online survey, and then we've had 8 virtual public meetings as part of this process. We also used a series of observational techniques. We went to visit and evaluated all the city's parks in collaboration with Mr. Phillips and Ms. Ford and Ms. Payne and others. We also looked at trends and then population projections for the city over the next 10 years to see what the population might look like, age groups, race, gender, etc. And then lastly, quantitative techniques. The strongest of which is the statistically valid survey. That's the technique that is unbiased. It's mailed out into the community, and you may or may have not received it, and that's the point because it's unbiased. But it's information is collected and then matched the demographics of the community. So it's our strongest technique to understanding those needs. And then a bunch of data crunching, looking at different data sets in different ways to help us identify what the needs are. We were really excited to learn or to get the participation of over 1,300 residents from the city in different ways, right? The last few months was done virtually, through a series of Zoom meetings like we're doing now. But before then, we had the opportunity to engage folks in different special events, which was really great. So just a few more slides that I wanted to share with you. One of those slides is the big findings, right? The key summaries. If we were to take all the information that we collected and we analyzed, we could summarize it in these 6 key points. And there's a whole lot of data behind this that we won't share with you today due to the time, but there's a whole bunch of data suggesting this. So 6 key things that we learned is the importance of continuing to position parks, recreation, and cultural affairs as essential services. And that's something that the city's already doing through the recreation centers and specifically the Welcome All, providing opportunities for residents to collect meals during these times, and also providing virtual services as well. So those are all ways that some of the ways that the department is positioned to continue to provide and serve residents during these difficult times. And there's also opportunities to continue to enhance that, which we'll explore. There's also a need to upgrade existing parks, recreation, and cultural facilities. And that we saw across many of the techniques. And it makes sense, right? You received this, you inherited the system from the county that hadn't received capital improvements investment in many, many years. And it's showing, right? So it's an opportunity to really start upgrading these facilities and bring them up to par. There's also a need to ensure equitable access to parks and recreation facilities. There's many findings that we saw that just suggest that there's a need for additional parks in different parts of the city that currently don't have access to the park. In fact, some of your council districts don't even have a park, Council District 7. So there's a need to ensure and provide that equitably across the system. Also enhancing marketing and communications. And this is something typical that we see of all the systems that we work with, is there's an opportunity to enhance that so more people know of the great services that the department is offering. And there's some quick ways to do that that we'll be exploring. And then the last 2 is number 5, customized parks and recreation and cultural priorities. We heard from residents what some of their priorities were. And so there's an opportunity to be responsive to those. And we'll explore that with the city in the coming months. And then lastly, maximize resource generation and allocation to make sure that the services are provided in a financially sustainable way. So I mentioned that a lot of these things we'll be exploring on and addressing, and that's what our next steps is. So come here in August, we'll be wrapping up this phase, the needs and priorities, and then we'll enter the visioning phase of the project, which will look at the findings and then establish an appropriate response for that. I think to us, what's really exciting about this phase is visioning will be done in 2 phases. One looking at system-wide visioning, and then the next is going to be looking at each of the city's parks and developing conceptual plans for each of those parks based on public input. So we're really excited to be doing that with the city. And then that'll take us through December, and then we'll look to wrap the project up by March 2021. So with that, I'll open it up for any questions that anyone might have. I'll turn it over to Mr. Phillips.
Thank you, Mr. Perez, for that presentation. That is such an important effort on our department's behalf and on the city's behalf and citizens' behalf to craft this vision for the future. And the next phase actually happens to be visioning, which is one of the ones I'm particularly looking forward to. It's going to give all of us a chance to kind of talk about what we'd like to see and get some information and have some dialogue. There's some really cutting edge things that have gone on all over the country. And so kind of looking at some of the best practices in the parks, recreation, and cultural affairs space, as well as coming up with our own ideas, is all going to be a part of that visioning process. Now, I'm sure as all of us are aware, what kind of is the overarching umbrella for everything that we're doing right now is working our way through this worldwide pandemic. And so that has had, like every other organization, individual, and entity, that has certainly had an impact on what we do here in the Department of Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Affairs. We are currently working through a reopening plan that was approved by the city manager and the city council. In the initial phase of that, phase 1 of that, we opened some of our parks on an alternative schedule, trying to maintain some social distancing practices. When the virus transmission begins to decrease. We've got a phase 2 and phase 3 where we'll begin to open facilities on an alternate basis, kind of limited, making sure that we can keep people healthy. And ultimately, when we get to phase 3, and all the timing of that, by the way, is driven by the virus infection rates. Currently, as many of you may be aware, in our state and specifically in our county, we are still at a pretty significant rate of virus transmission. And so hopefully that will begin to turn around and go in another direction. And so the timing of the subsequent phases when we'll begin to open up art centers and recreation centers again is tied directly to a decline in those virus transmission numbers. And so in lieu of that, some of you may be aware that we delved into virtual programming. And so we've taken an opportunity to kind of figure out how we can connect under this new normal with a lot of our community virtually. Just like we do these meetings on Zoom, we've also come up with a whole menu of virtual programming in the arts space, cultural affairs, recreation, and some other areas. We'll be sharing more information about that with you in the future because we want to continue to connect to our communities, even if health guidelines don't allow us to bring people together at the current time. And so that's just another factor. I'm sure most of us are aware that we're living through it every day. And hopefully as we move forward and that develops and hopefully gets a little bit more in hand, then we'll begin looking at the additional things that we'll do to open up our facilities and our art centers to the public. We're looking forward to the opportunity to do that as soon as possible. Were there any questions at all on anything that's been presented so far today, the Parks Master Plan or any of our other discussions?
I did have one.
No, not for me. Go ahead, Todd.
Okay. Thank you. I have one question about the presentation that Mr. Perez did. I know you presented the longer version to the Parks Advisory Committee on Tuesday. Some of the maps were hard to see. Is there a copy of that we might be able to review?
Absolutely, we can make that available.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Phillips, before we move to adjournment, I just wanted to take another opportunity. Mr. Warren, if you do have audio, if you were able to regain audio, please let us know. We'd like to do your swearing in process today. So if you do have audio, feel free to unmute yourself. Okay, Mr. Phillips, I don't think Mr. Warren regained audio, so we'll just proceed towards our adjournment. And once we reschedule, we can get Mr. Warren sworn in at a later date.
Ms. Ford, can I ask one more question before we adjourn?
Yes, ma'am.
So Councilwoman Rao had been getting a lot of feedback from the community about them wanting to see John Lewis honored in some way. And so she was proposing potentially a mural at Sandtown Park near his home. And there's a grant deadline that's at the end of this month, August 28th. And so I was wanting to know if you could advise us what would be the protocol for bringing something before the board in terms of potentially pursuing a project, or if that's not possible within that time frame, just so that we know, so that we can go in a different direction.
So we've already done some initial due diligence on that. I'm going to ask Ms. Payne if she would kind of give us an update. We were aware or made aware of that grant opportunity. Ms. Payne, can you kind of update on where we are on that?
Yes, definitely. So we were made aware of some of the grant opportunities. One grant, we did not meet one of the criterias, but we are looking at some additional grants to make that project happen. So yes, that is definitely on our radar. And by next meeting, we should have some type of report to bring back to the group on that item.
So though that grant, I'm sorry, so that grant vehicle was not a good fit for us. Our goal of getting the mural is definitely still on our radar, and we intend to make that happen either through alternate grants or in discussions with this commission and others, coming up with an alternate plan to make sure that we honor the legacy of John Lewis somewhere in the Sandtown community as soon as we can.
I have a question in regards to that. The initiatives of actually doing the mural, executing the mural, is that something that
through the grant, is it sought out for professional artists? Is it artists, like maybe could teens be involved? Is it going to be a community effort to execute this mural, or is it just get the grant funds to the artists, commission the artists to do it, and then we have our mural for John Lewis over on that side of town?
So we are working through that process now. The initial grants typically, as you may know, have certain stipulations as to how the grant can be used. And so a lot of that will be determined by what the funding source is. If we do engage another grant, we'll have to kind of abide by whatever guidelines are there. What I can tell you is, as we look forward, our overarching goal is to make sure that whatever we do honors his legacy. So we want it to be something that the entire community can be proud of, that reflects not only the lifetime of work that John Lewis committed to all of us, but is something, again, that we feel is an accurate representation of his legacy. So whether or not we commission a professional artist or there's some other way of achieving that goal, that's kind of where we want to start. And then depending on the funding source and what stipulations come with that funding, we can craft kind of an operational plan of how we'll actually execute that mural.
Can we get a copy of the grant that you guys are looking to utilize to see this project through?
We are looking at several. We've not finalized one yet. The initial one that I think was referred to was the one where there was a stipulation that we did not qualify for. So we're in the grant kind of seeking process at this point,
Gotcha.
trying to figure out some alternate means. And so as Ms. Payne mentioned, when we get to our next discussion, our next meeting, there'll definitely be a little bit more meat on the bones where we can talk about this and talk about what grants we've identified and applied for. And if grant funding is not a possibility, then we'll look for some alternate ways of getting this done. And so, grants is an entire world unto itself. And so we hope to have some additional details. It's always a good thing if we can fund it through grants, because that certainly helps with the funding process. But our goal is to get this mural up in whatever way we can, utilizing grant or other sources of funding.
Mr. Phillips, I'd like to just briefly let the members know, as we go through this process through the Public Arts Commission, if any of our members, if you guys become aware of any type of arts programs, initiatives, funding, grant, any number of topics that you feel are relevant to our city, please feel free to email me those with the corresponding links. So the next time we have our scheduled meeting, I can make sure that certain items get added to the agenda. So the entire group, we can discuss and make decisions. So at any point, any type of initiatives come across your radar, please feel free to email or share those with me.
Will do.
Any other questions that we may have?
No, thank you.
No, thank you.
Well, thank you. Those are really good questions, and that's the type of feedback that we need from our Arts Commission members. So thank you for that. Again, let me congratulate you on being sworn in and being members of the Arts Commission. There's an exciting future in front of us, both for the community, for arts in our community, and for this commission. We will follow up shortly after this with a brief summary of this meeting, as well as our next steps in terms of securing a date for our next meeting, since we did not achieve a quorum for this one. And so please be on the lookout for that. Ms. Ford will be the primary department liaison for this commission. So you'll receive a lot of emails and updated information from Ms. Lakita Ford. And so thank you again. We appreciate your being willing to serve in this capacity, and we look forward to having our next meeting as soon as possible. And with that, we will consider our meeting for today adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you. You guys do the same. Stay safe and healthy.
Thank you.
Thank you,
as well.
everyone.
Take care.
Okay.